and welcome to Talking Live. We are talking with Holly Parker about her new book, Back on the Market. She is a very successful real estate agent, now author, and she's going to talk to us about the similarities between real estate and real life. Holly, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it.
I have to say, when I was reading through your book and preparing for today, I really felt like I was reading a novel. And I can't say that for most advice books. Like, it really felt like it could be a Sex in the City. Your life sounds like that. This book sounds like that with great advice.
Oh, that's awesome. I will tell you that was not me. So I have a co-writer. And what I wanted to do is say, I wanted to get up on my soapbox and be like, here's what everybody needs to do. Right. And she said, that is the last thing that anyone needs, Holly. You can't just, chapter 1, do this, chapter 2, do that. Yeah. She said, if you want your reader to listen to you, you need to share your story. And that was so terrifying to me. I'm like, my story? Why does anyone want to hear my story? My story's not important. It's not interesting. And she's like, I'll be the judge of that. Let's just hear your story.
I could see this being made into a movie, by the way. That's how I felt when I was reading your book. And yet the advice is so great. I mean, I'll just even say, like, when I first opened it up, dating is like real estate. The longer you're on the market, the more people are going to wonder what's wrong with you. And there is a bit of truth to that.
There is. And that statement makes me laugh all the time, because when I was dating, all they wanted to know was, so how long have you been dating? Do you date a lot? How many people are you dating right now? What happened to your divorce? They have these, why did you get divorced? And you're meeting this stranger for the very first time, and they're asking for the most private information that they could possibly ask. And you're like, I don't even know your last name at this point.
Right. Like, who are you, by the way?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you?
I get patients telling me that when they've been single for a long time, especially for women, and their dates will say, well, why aren't you married yet? And they feel so attacked by that question, because basically the date is saying there's something wrong with you.
Exactly. And here.
And I have to say, just reversing it a bit, I always felt like looking for real estate was like dating, because you're walking into a space and there's an image you have in mind, and there's a certain type of layout that makes one feel more comfortable rather than less comfortable. So I love this idea that during change, we really can rely on these principles. What principles do you feel are most important to help people navigate through the unknown?
That's an interesting question. But just to comment on before, here's a wonderful piece to tell those people, because that statement, even though that's what the crowd's attached to it, right? Buyers want to know, how many days has this been on the market? How many offers have you gotten? If it was in contract, why did it fall out of contract? So the best thing that I say is, remember, luxury real estate, true collector item real estate, takes a very long time to sell, meaning the best homes in the world take the longest to sell. So the opposite is true.
Oh, I love that. I give them a different recommendation. Now, why is that the case?
Well, because at the luxury, it depends on where you are and what the luxury property is in that space. Let's say it's $2 million. Okay. And maybe you're up in the north of Maine, and that's, the super luxury market. There's not that many buyers that come through, right? That can pay that price. So you have to wait for the right match,
the right person.
It could be, I sold a $52 million penthouse during lockdown. Well, I had to wait for the right person to come along that could do it over the phone with pictures and a video, right?
I'm going to use that one, Holly.
It's
You know,
important. It's
it's a
important
good one.
because I really don't like people to think exactly that. I've been on the market and there's this shaming about being
Yes.
single. And the point of my book, not to like ruin the ending,
No,
but the point of my book is to
I didn't even
fall.
realize I'm matching your book today, but
You are,
okay.
thank you for doing that. I love that. But it's to fall in love with your own property. Fall in
Yeah.
love with your own property. It's the best way to sell it. But if you're your own best friend and you marry yourself, guess what? The world wants to be with you.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah,
didn't
there's
actually need them at that point. You're like, you're in a very good place. Stay or go. I'm happy either way.
yes, yes. I don't know if you know Catherine Hicklin. She was a soap opera actress. And I remember right before she got engaged, she said, you know what? I love me so much that the person that I got engaged to really had to step up to the plate, because if I didn't enjoy him as much as I enjoy myself, I
Right.
wasn't doing it. I thought that was really wonderful.
Right? They have to come and add something and hopefully pull you up, right? To that next, help you be stronger, better, and not just, kind of diminish that. And
When did you see the similarities between real estate and meeting life's pivots and challenges?
so I saw it right out of the gate. And it's very difficult to explain to buyers and sellers why I'm taking the techniques that I am. And a
Mhm.
lot of them want to grab the wheel and tell me how to drive, but I'm pretty good at driving. So I have to pull back and in a nice way explain, guys, I know this buyer came for a second showing, and I know that you are excited by that, but you're telling me to call them a third time, which is a bit too desperate at this point. We're going to give
Mhm.
away our cards like dating. We've already
Mhm.
left 2 messages. A third one might even turn someone off to even want that third date. We got to sit back on our heels. We got to be confident. We got to keep getting out there and doing our thing. And when and if they are ready, we'll deal with it that way. It's like inviting someone over at 2 a.m. and think that they're going to show up with an engagement ring. It doesn't happen,
Right.
right?
Yes, it's so true. And you start off really being open about your own story. And what struck me first, of course, because I think through things first as a therapist, the conversation your father had with you
Mm-hmm.
about men and how you experienced your mother. Tell me a little bit about that and what helped you get over those faulty negative ideas.
Well, that's interesting because there is a point in there where I say, what is in your mind, right, becomes your reality. So there is
Mm-hmm.
that. You don't want to go through with that advice thinking men are awful, men are awful.
Yeah.
And I didn't take that with me at all because my father is amazing and
Yeah.
he majored in psychology when he went to Brown back in the day. So
Uh-huh.
I always say that he's part woman because he loves to cross his legs and just get into it. Like, let's talk about that. So he is, he's truly amazing. So I
So
didn't
that helped. It's interesting how he had that idea about men, even though he was an amazing role model. So
right,
that explains how you were able to break free from that idea,
right.
because a parent's voice is very, very powerful. And you talk about how even community can shape one's identity and
Of
choices
course.
when you talk about your first marriage.
Of course. What he was describing to me was well, he was a partner in an investment firm. And so he saw a lot of things go down where the men were making the money and hiding the money and then leaving the marriage and not leaving the woman um, you know enough to get by, and he just had seen too many of those
Yeah.
stories. So it was mostly around the financial aspect. saying, don't depend on a man for this because you never know in life. And he had been surprised by some men that he thought were amazing that really ended up not doing the right thing when they left their wives. So he never wanted to see my sister and I, or any woman for that matter. He's very protective of all women. It's very sweet. So
when you were writing this book, what were the main principles you felt would be helpful to your readers in terms of making smart life decisions?
well, I think when you are faced with a massive change, which let's face it, we all are in the last year,
Yeah.
it's really critical to pull yourself back and take that time to connect to your own property. I call it fix your foundation.
Yes.
So reach out to a therapist, find a great therapist. If you can't afford it, there are so many amazing podcasts out there. There are amazing things that are available to you where you can feel so alone, like no one in the world is experiencing what I'm experiencing. And then you find this podcast and they're breaking it down for you. And it's almost like the lights go on and you don't feel alone anymore. And that's incredible. So to take that time walking, meditating, and some people are like, I'm not a meditator. I get it. I wasn't. I'm a million miles an hour. So for me to slow down is a lot. So I do it in my own way. I do it right when I wake up. I do it in my bed. I do it lying down. I have this music that I love, and I do it all in the first half an hour that I wake up. That's my way of, there's no wrong way. So it's just a moment to figure out, what is it that I want?
Yeah.
Who am I? If somebody had a magic wand and said, I grant you the beautiful life that you've always wanted, do you even know what it is?
It's such a brilliant question because a lot of people are so busy distracting themselves and really frightened to look within because it can be a scary place to look, to
Oh, it's
really look
terrifying.
at your challenges, your insecurities, your frustrations. And I like how you state that if you're looking to know more in a particular subject, find a book. You can even find an article that helps you familiarize yourself with these principles.
So much. I am a podcast addict. I mean, the amount of information and growth that I've been able to have in the last 12 months, and it's free.
Yeah.
Free. It's been life altering for me.
Do you have some that you favor? Any podcasts you favor?
I love Brene Brown. She just called, and then you know what? Listening to Brene Brown even before the lockdown, when I had written this, and Laura was, she knows what she's doing. My co-writer, she said, "Write your story, Holly. Write your story for me, and then I want you to tell it to me, and then we'll kind of find bits and pieces. We'll edit it back, okay?" And then the pandemic hit, and she's like, "Give me that manuscript." And she kind of took it and ran with it. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, this is so uncomfortable. I've never been this uncomfortable, before in my life, that I'm going to share all of this. And Brene Brown, right before that with, Daring Greatly, of you got to be vulnerable. We put this armor on that we think is going to shield us from pain, but it smothers everything as thick armor would do. It smothers joy. And you know what? I hadn't felt a ton of joy, even though I'm writing this how-to book. All of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm wearing 2,000 tons of armor.
So for you, what was that armor? Even though you were an expert and successful and got remarried, happily remarried, what was your armor?
It's a really interesting question because the reason that I wrote this book so long after I was divorced is because I had a friend divorce. I had a very best friend that we were inseparable. We worked together, we played together, we spoke
Mm.
every single morning. He was the last call at night. I called him my gay husband, and we
Mm.
thought that we were going to be in each other's lives. I mean, we already had figured out where we were going to retire and what we were going to do. So we were so entwined. And then he left my company to go to another company, and that was it. Even though we lived in the same building,
Mm.
he literally turned off.
Wow.
And we tried for a certain period. We tried probably for about a year and a half.
Mm.
Let's have dinner once a week. Let's work on this. It's okay. We never had these struggles before, but
Mhm.
let's try and figure this out. I never figured out what it was. Was it because I
Hmm.
didn't leave my company and go with him? He didn't ask me to. Was it because he got a new boyfriend that he really fell in love with? I'll never know the answers. So I was going around and around and around in the dark. He's in my building, he's everywhere. How do I have closure to this?
Mm.
It's not coming. The closure is not coming.
Yeah.
And I beat myself up for a long time. Like, what could you have done to have lost your very best friend? You must have done something really horrible.
It's so interesting because with friendships, it could be even more powerful because we expect our friendships to go on forever. With relationships, we know there's a
Right.
certain amount of vulnerability, but we
Right.
don't think that there's a beginning, middle, and end to friendships.
No.
And sometimes circumstances can be enough, or we don't know that person's history with intimacy. Maybe they can only be intimate with one person at a time.
Right. And you know what? A lot of times, because I give a lot of different examples in it's under abandonment
Yes.
chapter, right? And I give a lot of different examples because the more I started talking about this, the more people are like, oh my God, that happened to me. Can I just tell you
Yeah.
my story? And they really needed to share it. And the
Yeah.
shame that goes on, and they couldn't talk about it because then other people would be like, oh, well, what's wrong with you that your best friend of 2 decades broke up with you and ran for the hills? You must have a rotted foundation. And I
Yeah.
finally got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I was an amazing friend, not a
Yeah.
good friend, not a really good friend. I was an amazing friend. And I
Mm.
was tired of beating myself up about it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write about this because it's the only way I'm going to feel closure on this.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
do feel closure around it. I feel
Yeah.
real peace around it. And the only way I got there was through a lot of the techniques that I give advice. I'm reading my book going, wait, what did I tell people to do here? Because I really need this
Yeah.
to move on to it and get back to loving me
Yeah.
because I wasn't loving me during that time. And it was really, really damaging to
I
me.
could see in real estate, as with circumstances like you just described, where it's very easy for somebody to say, it's my fault, right? I didn't do something right. I'm not rich enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not something enough. That's why I wasn't chosen, or that's why things fell apart. And what do you say to the person who's in that self-attack space?
Oh my God, this is such an exciting question because this is the aha. And I was just thinking about this as I was hurrying up to dry my hair to get here to you, that I have never felt as strong as I am right now.
Mm,
I have involved myself in things I never would have done
mm,
if this didn't happen to me. Okay. And this is what so many people try and communicate to us. And it's so
yeah,
hard to absorb it when you're going through it,
it
which is
is.
you don't grow from the easy stuff. You don't have those aha moments from the good times. You grow with pain. So my
Yes.
point is trust the universe. Turn your
Mm,
pain into petrol and you've no idea where you're going to go because I listen, I had ideas and wishes for my life. I did not think I would be this strong
Mm,
or accomplish what I have accomplished if I didn't have those years of
mm.
true suffering.
And it's nobody wants to sign up for pain, but
Mm-mm.
I think the truth and what you mentioned is so true, that in life there is pain, so it's best to acknowledge that, not seek it out. It'll find you. It'll find you, but to see the process through and to maybe make a commitment to yourself that this circumstance or circumstances will make you stronger if you allow it to.
Exactly. I mean, how many gurus say lean into your pain? And you're like, would you
Yeah.
shut up?
Yeah.
That's
I'd
not
rather
helping.
shop it away. How about you?
Right? Or let's go have a cocktail, or let's be so busy at work that you don't have time to think about anything, or let's just run out and date somebody right away.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that we escape the real challenges.
Yes.
And when I stopped doing that, because I was very, very good at all of those things, as Renee says, watching Downton Abbey with, a glass of wine, guilty. I just got, you know, looking at those reruns, escaping. But when I stopped escaping and embraced it, that's where the magic happened.
Well, we are lucky that you wrote this book back on the market and that you chose to share your story to help others. And I actually think you should have your own podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I really do. Where can people find you and this book?
So they can find the book wherever books are sold.
Okay.
They can go to Amazon. They can go to hollyparker.com, where we give a number of suggestions. On hollyparker.com, you can learn a little bit more about me and what I'm doing. On Instagram, I am at the hollyparkerteam.com or hollyparker_NYC.
Well, we are going to put up all that information. I can't wait to follow you myself. I'm excited. And I hope we get to meet over coffee or wine, my treat, the next time you're in town.
Oh, please, please, please. I would love that. I would just love that.
Thank you for joining me. And thank you to our Talking Live audience for joining us as well. If you want a copy of this book, we will have links up. Thanks again for joining me and have a great week.
Thank you so much.